Hey, this is Andy here with Libertarian Revolution, and today I'm at the Libertarian Party of California State Convention for 2020 being held in Culver City, California. And my guest right now is Roy Kendall, who is a libertarian and a 9/11 truther, like myself. And I was pleasantly surprised when I showed up at this convention. I looked at the list of speakers that this guy was speaking, and he was giving a presentation to Libertarian Party members about all of the anomalies and unanswered questions and holes in the official government story about 9/11. I'm just going to move the camera down a little bit and take a shot of the table here he's got set up with stuff from Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. He's got bumper stickers, rethink911.org, 9/11 explosive evidence from Architects and Engineers for 9/11truth.org. And then he's also got a box with some DVDs in it. Show us some of the DVDs you got here. He's got 9/11 Blueprint for Truth, Stand for the Truth, 9/11, what's that one there?
San Francisco Press Conference.
San Francisco Press Conference on 9/11. And anyway, now, this is a subject that I have been talking about for many years myself. I actually got into the whole 9/11 truth thing not long after it happened. Speaking for myself, I happened to be in Massachusetts at the time, working on a petition drive that was launched by a libertarian by the name of Carla Howell to repeal the state income tax. And I was out collecting signatures one day, and I was actually in front of a store, and I started talking to the cart guy. And the cart guy was a very informed cart guy. We were talking about politics and everything, and he asked me if I ever listened to Alex Jones. And at the time, I had not heard of Alex Jones, and he said I should check out the website Infowars.com, and he wrote it down on my clipboard. And I don't know, sometime later when I went to turn in my petition signatures to Carla Howell, she had a makeshift office set up in the basement, and she had some computers there, and I was checking my email on one of the computers, and I was about to leave, and I looked down at my clipboard, and I saw Infowars.com. I went on the website and saw all this information about 9/11 being an inside job. Well, when 9/11 happened, I was suspicious of it, but I didn't think that there was enough evidence for me to say it was an inside job. I already knew about the Oklahoma City bombing and, Waco, Ruby Ridge, Kennedy assassination before 9/11 happened, but I didn't want to come out and call it an inside job without having any evidence, so I just assumed it was blowback from years of bad U.S. foreign policy intervening in the Middle East. But anyway, I started looking at the information presented by people like Alex Jones and Mike Rupert and some others, and started investigating it, went down the rabbit hole, and by around December of 2001, I was openly calling 9/11 an inside job. Anyway, what's your story? How did you get involved in the 9/11 Truth movement, and how did you and how long have you been a libertarian?
Since 1989.
Wow, you've been around longer than I have in this stuff.
Yes, but at the same time, during that time period, I've not been consistently registered as libertarian, and I've gone to all of the different parties except for the Communist Party. But my reason for being here and my interest in 9/11 started by just listening to a radio interview, I believe, with Richard Gage and maybe Bonnie Faulkner on the KPFA out of Berkeley. And
how long ago was this?
Probably not 01. It was much later. It could have been 03, 04, 05. It was quite a while. It was after Richard Gage had decided that this was something that it was at the formation of AE 9/11 Truth.
Yeah, that's Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, and Richard Gage is the founder of it.
Right. And today I think there's over 3,000. These are registered architects and engineers that have been vetted, that have signed their name, put their career on the line, and simply said, we need a new investigation of what happened on 9/11. They don't go any further than just that. If asked, that's where they stop. As professionals, they don't want to declare anything that they don't have peer-reviewed science and evidence to support, and neither do I. So my first interest was, well, this is too obvious, and I contacted. I went online and saw ae911truth.org, and I decided to sign their petition requesting a new investigation. It all looked too logical to me. All looked too common sense. And since then, I've been involved with the ae911truth.org and their members, including an engineer named Dan Noel from down in Costa Mesa, and of course the man that was here just yesterday, Dwayne Dietz, who is an aeronautical engineer and worked for NASA. And he spoke for 1 hour and answered questions in my place, yesterday, but made it perfectly clear that the evidence is there to demand a new investigation, an independent investigation of what happened on 9/11, and it has to do with, if we don't investigate and we just continue with what we're dealing with right now, and nothing happens, and nothing will happen without publicity, widespread public interest and support, and the public becoming educated as to what happened and why it was impossible that the two planes hitting buildings 1 and 2 could have ever caused those buildings to collapse at free fall speed.
And of course, Building 7 wasn't even hit by a plane.
No, that's a trick question. How many planes hit building number 7? Well, no planes hit building number 7. Not one plane hit building number 7, and yet it fell at free fall speed.
And it was also kind of at a far end of the World Trade Center complex, away from buildings 1 and 2, and there were buildings that were closer to buildings 1 and 2 that got hit with a lot more debris, yet they didn't collapse.
Well, it wouldn't matter how much debris hit it. According to the University of Alaska, and if you search on the internet, University of Alaska Fairbanks, building number 7, or University of Alaska 911, their summary report is available online, and it says in so many words that after 4 years and $300,000 that were paid privately by the architects and engineers, ae911truth.org, Richard Gage's organization paid for this report, paid for this investigation. Their summary report is out that fires did not cause the collapse of building number 7. And this directly, 180 degrees, contradicts the report from NIST, the National Institute for Standards and Technology, the government report, the official version. And it was the NIST report that was part of the excuse, part of the reason for the U.S. going to war in Iraq, Afghanistan, and the continuing wars in the Mideast.
Also passing the Patriot Act and creating the Department of Homeland Security and the TSA.
Yes, and the loss of our personal freedoms due to the events of 9/11, and which, when you think about it, is very, very much not just a libertarian question, not just Republican or Democrat or Green or American Independent or Independent Party. No. This is very much a human question. Are we going to let stand a report from NIST that is contradicted by the University of Alaska report when they're totally opposite? One says fires, the other says no fires. Are we going to just let that slide and just go on down the road, into wars and use this as an excuse for loss of our personal freedom, and think that this is just the new normal? And that's very, very...
Well, unfortunately, it has been the new normal since 2001.
Well, yes, without a doubt. And a very interesting thing to read, if you go to ae911truth.org and look up the grand jury complaint. There's a federal grand jury complaint which was submitted on the response was November the 7th. It was submitted April 10th and July 30th of 2018. And this is a letter from the United States Department of Justice. Okay? And you can see the date on it, and yet there's been no follow-up, there's been no response from the U.S. Department of Justice giving any status on the how the grand jury report is doing. But if you want to read this report, which is only 57, 58 pages, 58, almost 60 pages long, not very long, this is the grand jury report on ae911truth.org under grand jury report. Just look under exhibits and you'll see the revised, the original and the revised grand jury reports filed by the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry Inc. Their report is available.
Yeah, now let me ask you, before you got into 9/11 Truth, did you have any awareness of government, of false flag terrorism?
Yes, and it has to go back to the U.S. Liberty, the USS
You was thinking of the
Liberty
USS Liberty, yes.
Yeah, June 8th of 1967, and I was aware of that, and my thinking at the time was that it would look like this was something that was done by Israel alone. But now, today, after reading The Blood in the Water, a new book by Joan Mellon, M-E-L-L-E-N, Joan Mellon, her book, Blood in the Water, is discussing the attack on the USS Liberty. Her cover page, the cover jacket, says how the U.S. and Israel conspired to attack the USS
Yeah,
Liberty.
wasn't it reported that Lyndon Johnson said that he wanted to see that ship go to the bottom of the goddamn ocean floor or something along that lines?
Yeah, probably that's milder than what he said, but
Yeah.
And it is a very interesting book. You don't want to start reading it in the afternoon or evening because it'll keep you up all night. This book tells a story about the Committee of 303, which has been called the Committee for Plausible Deniability as to what goes on. It's CIA and covert operations, because we think we have three branches, we really have four. Forget the executive and the Senate and the House. We also have the covert operations, and that is part of where things happen that we don't vote on or know about until after they happen, and we really don't get into the whole story. Such as in Vietnam. And I'm 72 years old, and I'm a Vietnam-era veteran. I was in active duty from 66 to 70 during the Vietnam War, and was also involved in what's called Operation Menu. No one knows about Operation Menu.
Yeah, I've never heard of that one.
No, but I was involved, and I didn't know about it until a couple of months ago. But it was, the common name is known as the secret bombing of Cambodia.
I have heard of that. I just didn't know it was called Operation Menu.
Well, Operation Menu was named Menu by the Nixon administration. It happened very curiously that Richard Nixon, President Nixon, went to church, came back to the White House from church, sat down for dinner with his wife Pat and Henry Kissinger, and he's sitting around a table there, and they're holding on to menus, and he told Henry Kissinger, he said, well, you know, I think we ought to carpet bomb Cambodia. That's after going to church. He came back to the White House for dinner and said, I think we should carpet bomb Cambodia. And they said, well, that's a good idea. What are we going to call it? Well, they were holding menus, and they said, well, let's call it Operation Menu. And then the question was, well, what are we going to name the bombing runs? Well, that's important. Well, let's see, there's breakfast, lunch, dinner, a snack, and dessert. We'll just call them, just right off the menu. So the bombing runs were named after meals on the menu. But what people don't realize today is there's an excellent video called First They Killed My Father. The book First They Killed My Father is a movie on Netflix. Angela Jolie made a movie called First They Killed My Father, which is about Cambodia in 1975, after the U.S. withdrawal in 1973 from Vietnam and Cambodia, and the vacuum that was created, and when the U.S. pulled out and left the Khmer Rouge and the killing fields and the Pol Pot, and what they did. And this is a video that you don't want to watch late at night either, and you don't, it'll just keep you awake all night. And also, it is definitely not a romantic, comedy. This is fiction based on fact with a lot of historical documentary along the lines of Ken Burns. But it is also a most interesting film that I would recommend everyone to see immediately, because it shows the dangerous idea of communism and control and trying to make everybody equal down to wearing the same black shirts. And it shows the story of them picking berries to dye their clothes so that everybody looked the same with the same uniform on. And what happened to the guns, the gun control issue, right there, it shows the confiscation of guns.
That gets into another thing. Now, once you get into looking into 9/11 and some of these other issues, What is your thoughts on a lot of these shooting incidents? There's been a lot of these big, hyped up shootings that have happened. There's so many of them that it's even hard to keep track of them. But there was, Sandy Hook. There was the Aurora Batman shooting. There was the Las Vegas shooting, the Waco biker shooting, the Parkland shooting in Florida. Like I said, there's been a bunch of these things. Do you think that, my opinion is that all, or at least the majority of the big hyped up shootings have been false flag events, whether they're people are really dying or not, I don't know. Maybe in some of them they do. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if they're using fake victims in some of these things. Now, if you go back, there was a document back in the 1960s from the Pentagon called Operation Northwoods, and this is it's been declassified. Do you know about Operation Northwoods? Yeah. It said in Operation Northwoods, the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon were looking for ways to provoke a war with Cuba. And one of the things they talked about, was hijacking airplanes and blaming it on Cubans. They talked about, doing bombings and blaming it on Cubans. And they also talked about staging shooting incidents and doing it on and blaming it on Cubans. And they even mentioned in the report, this is an official U.S. military from the Pentagon report, of staging shootings and using fake victims and having fake funerals for fake victims. If you don't believe this, folks, look it up. But anyway, what are your thoughts on these shootings? Do you think this is all happening organically, or do you think there's something fishy at play?
Well, I'll just take one example, if I start with one, that I am familiar with, and that's the Parkland shooting. Mm-hmm. The Parkland shooting, the shooter in the Parkland shooting was a victim himself of the fetal alcohol syndrome, fetal alcohol effects, fetal alcohol syndrome. This shooter was a victim the minute he was born of alcohol poisoning to his brain prior to his birth. Before he was born, his mother heavily drank alcohol, and when he was born as a victim of FASD, and FASD. Okay, he's definitely a victim without any hesitation. You can look at his pictures, look at the reports, study it. This shooter at the Parkland shooting was already born a victim himself, and one of those symptoms of an FASD, FAE victim is the same attributes, the same aggressiveness, the same learning disability that he had, and it is expressed in his shooting. So the idea that there's some other conspiracy there, I think the fact is that he did this shooting because he was already a victim, and the alcohol consumption by his mother during her pregnancy is what caused him to do the shooting there at Parkland. What people don't know about is a case called the Jim Beam. The Jim Beam case, almost no one knows about this Jim Beam case. But Jim Beam was sued by a woman whose child was born with FASE, and because of the disabilities that her alcohol consumption during pregnancy caused. Now, yes, Jim Beam won the case because the jury was convinced that, everybody knows not to drink during pregnancy, or you can cause serious problems to your future child. What people don't know is that alcohol consumption prior to pregnancy will also cause disability and damage to the future.
But so do you think that that the Parkland shooting was organic? In other words, that it was not a false flag?
No, it was not a false flag.
Okay, well I disagree with you on that one. Okay.
Disagree.
Yeah.
I'm just pointing out, but look it up and study the shooter. The shooter himself had all of the attributes of a FAS victim.
Well, you could be very well correct about that, but that doesn't automatically mean that it wasn't a false flag. I mean, they could have had, government agents could have used him as a patsy or put him up to it, maybe egged him on.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I want to see peer-reviewed scientific medical evidence, PubMed. I want to see something that has some concrete, duplicatable, not just one report. And I don't want to go off reading off the bathroom wall some conspiracy theory that this was set up by people that wanted to create gun control in America. Okay, so unless I have evidence, then I'm not going to go there, other than the evidence of who the shooter was and how he was injured and how he was an FAS victim, FAS, FAE, and how this relates to other situations where we have evidence that the shooter was already a victim.
Well, there's a lot of really strange stuff that's happened surrounding these shootings. I know that several of them, it's come out that during the same time frame when the shooting was going on, the FBI or some other government agency just so happened to be conducting an active shooter drill. Just kind of like on 9/11, they were conducting that, was it Project Vigilant Guardian, where the Pentagon was having an exercise that there were hijacked airplanes, and that was one of the reasons why the other people in the military didn't intercept the planes, because they thought it was part of a drill. So a lot of times they'll try to conceal these false flags as being, oh, this is just part of a drill. But anyway, moving onward to discussion here, I understand you want to get a resolution passed at the Libertarian Party of California State Convention?
Yes, I believe it will pass tomorrow afternoon. And basically what it says is, the whereas is that this 47-story World Trade Center WTC-7 was destroyed on September 11th, dropping straight down into its own footprint in 6.5 seconds at free fall acceleration after witnesses heard explosions. The National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, assigned by Congress to study and report, found that fire alone caused the destruction of the building. And whereas the architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth, AE911truth.org, sponsored a detailed study of the World Trade Center 7 destruction by the University of Alaska at Fairbanks. The 3-year study by Professor Leroy Halsey and 2 PhD researchers determined that the NIST explanation for the collapse was wrong, and that the collapse was a global failure involving the near simultaneous failure of every column in the building. Then the whereas next is that the Lawyers Committee for 9/11 Inquiry has filed a petition to the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York to present 60 exhibits of evidence to the special grand jury concerning all 3 World Trade Center high-rises, including World Trade Center 7. The petition provides evidence that the skyscrapers were demolished by controlled demolition. And then whereas also, all 5 fire commissioners of the Franklin Square and Munson Fire Commission in New York, headed by Fire Commissioner Christopher Gaioa, passed a unanimous resolution supporting the grand jury investigation. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the California Libertarian Party follow the lead of Fire Commissioner Gaioa and call for a new and independent investigation into the destruction of all 3 of the World Trade Center skyscrapers on 9/11.
So you're going to put that up tomorrow as a resolution for the Libertarian Party of California to pass, and I'm certainly going to support you on this. Now, at the 2010 Libertarian Party National Convention, which was held in St. Louis, Missouri, myself and Jim Dunsing, a libertarian from Nevada, and Roger Roots, a libertarian from Montana, we came up with a 9/11 Truth resolution for the Libertarian Party to support reopening the 9/11 investigation, and we actually got it read on the main stage of the convention hall, and we tried to get the body to vote on it, but some dirty tricks got played, and it got blocked from being voted on. So it got read on the stage, but did not get voted on. So anyway, do you anticipate that there will be any funny business tomorrow?
No. I think that it'll be treated fairly and openly and will pass not a unanimous vote, but I have confidence in the Libertarian Party, which is the smart party and intelligent party, that they will use their engineering, their legal, there's a lot of lawyers in the party, a lot of engineers, a lot of scientists, you name it. These people are going to use their decision making, their logic and reason, and see that this is not blaming somebody or not naming somebody or not even saying how it was done. It's just asking for the Libertarian Party's support of this grand jury investigation and basically stepping behind the firemen and the fire chief in New York to support the exact same thing that they did, and that is a new investigation. It's simply a request for a new investigation into what happened with the three World Trade Center buildings.
Mm-hmm. Well, within the Libertarian Party and within the greater Libertarian movement, there's kind of different factions, and I know there's kind of a faction of people who shout down anyone or cast aspersions on anyone who talks about so-called conspiracy theories. Now, are these people who haven't done their homework, or are they just really concerned that it's going to be bad for the party's image and cost us votes? Or are some of these people maybe outright saboteurs who are trying to damage the Libertarian Party by not diverting us away from the real and important issues? I don't know. I don't know what the motivation of these people is. I can't get inside their head, but I can tell you I've been at this for a long time, and I've encountered these people, and I've been called names: conspiracy theorist, kook, wacko, extremist, and black helicopter person or whatever. And have you been attacked yourself for talking about these issues?
No, and I do believe that in order to change anything, it's not going to be litigation that would change anything. It will be education and leadership. Leadership and education. If there's enough education out there, not just in the California Libertarian Party here at the convention, but in the state and in the nation and in the world, if there's enough education about that and leadership to cause people to learn that planes did not cause the collapse of 1 and 2. Yes, planes hit 1 and 2, but the planes hitting them were not the cause of the free fall collapse of buildings 1 and 2. And building number 7, which was not hit by any plane at all, is the gift to anybody who wants to question it, that says, look, this was not hit by a plane and fell down, by office fires? Mm-hmm. Now, if that were the case, we should definitely demand, along with the firemen out there, a new investigation to find out what did cause it. Mm-hmm. Because, first of all, one of the things that it makes this unique is what's called thermite, the presence of thermite and thermate in the residue of the fall. Now, the kerosene and jet fuel does not get hot enough. No fires are going to get hot enough to make thermite or thermate in the residue. It's not going to happen. So when the finding of this in the residue indicates that this fire became extremely hot. And also, after the fire, days after the attack and after the attacks on 1, 2, and 7 and their collapse, there was molten steel. There was the foundation was extremely hot. The firemen are reported as seeing liquid steel rolling down banisters, and this does not happen just due to regular fires at all. There had to be something causing extreme heat, and the thing to do is go to ae911truth.org and look it up and look at the evidence and study it for yourself and decide for yourself.
Yeah, now some libertarians say, why bother talking about this? This doesn't have anything to do with philosophy. It's not important. We shouldn't talk about this. We should just talk about philosophy or current political issues. Now, one of my responses to them is that when I'm out I've done a lot of libertarian outreach over the years, and when I talk to people who are into 9/11 truth, I find that they're also more receptive to the Libertarian Party and the Libertarian message. Now, the people who are not open to 9/11 truth, those are the type of people who are most likely to vote for Democrats and Republicans, and they're not going to vote for Libertarians anyway. So I think it's kind of have you encountered anything like that?
No, I think I'm batting 100% with people that I can talk to one-on-one or listen to an expert like the scientist Dwayne Dietz or watch in the videos. When you get one-on-one and somebody seriously looks at the evidence, because I was out of this for a while until this recent University of Alaska report came out, and then it became obvious to me that, well, now we have some peer-reviewed concrete evidence here that says, look, the NIST report was wrong, and here we have this scientific report from the University of Alaska that says, hey, fires did not cause building number 7 to collapse at free fall speed in 6.5 seconds in its own footprint. No, it had to be something else. And then what it is controlled demolition. That a controlled demolition, and that's exactly what it looks like when people look at the collapse of building number 7 side by side with a controlled demolition of a high-rise building, whether it be in Las Vegas or wherever. They can easily see an exact, parallel, exact mirror image of that collapse. Office fires burning, apartments burning do not cause building to collapse at free fall speed. And if somebody wants to see something even funny, just even go to Wikipedia and read about building number 7, and it says right there that building number 7 was one of three buildings in the history of the world that ever came down at free fall speed due to office fires or due to fires. Well, guess what? Right now today we have from the University of Alaska a report that says that fires did not cause building number 7 to collapse like that it was a controlled demolition. Now we have concrete evidence, university study that says we need a new investigation.
And Building 7 was full of government offices, wasn't it? It had Mayor Rudolph Giuliani had some kind of command center in there, and then weren't there offices for the FBI and CIA inside Building 7 as well as the Security and Exchange Commission?
Well, I do not know. You know far better than I, but it's also, that information is available on the internet and on the web as to search building number 7, the original building 7 and the rebuild of building number 7 and what was in it and what happened. It's important for people to look at the World Trade Centers 1 and 2 and 7, but also look at the Pentagon and over in Pennsylvania and look at the whole picture and ask themselves, are they satisfied with what we have right now? And if we do not do something about this, let's just say we do nothing, then we can just count on this happening again and again and again, and we will have what's called false flag that will cause us to go to wars that we did not choose to go into and were not discussed or voted on, that we decided we needed to have a war.
Do you think that this will bring more people to libertarianism?
Yes.
And the Libertarian Party?
Yes.
If the Libertarian Party embraces this issue?
Yes, and if they don't, I think it'll have the opposite effect.
Yeah, same here. Okay, well, thanks a lot. It's been really good talking to you. And do you have anything you want to plug or any closing statements you'd like to make?
Yes, I'd like everyone to go to the website, ae911truth.org, look up the petition after they look at the evidence, and decide for themselves if there's sufficient evidence to request a new investigation, whether they're an engineer or just a